Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Wildfire Preparedness Webinar. My name is Quinn Woolley. I'm a management analyst in the City of San Carlos City Manager's Office, and I will be kicking things off this evening. In light of the recent wildfires that have occurred across the state and nation, the City of San Carlos City Council heard from the community that you want to know what the city is doing to prepare. We designed tonight's webinar as a way to communicate that information. The last time we hosted a wildfire preparedness webinar was in 2022. We will be recording this webinar tonight and uploading it to our YouTube channel so it can be used as a resource over the next few years. Here's what you can expect tonight. We're going to start by introducing our panelists, followed by a quick poll to hear how the community feels about wildfire preparedness. Then we'll dive into part one of the webinar, where we'll cover what the City of San Carlos and our partner agencies who are presenting with us tonight do to prepare for wildfires and how we will respond during an incident. In part two, we'll focus on what you as residents can do to prepare and how to stay safe if a wildfire does occur. We'll wrap up with a brief closing poll, and then we'll leave about 30 minutes at the end for Q&A. While we will hold off on answering questions until then, you are welcome to submit questions to us anytime by locating the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and you can type questions to us. I will note that we are going to try and answer as many questions as we can, but for those more personal questions about you or your individual property, we may not be able to answer live. If we do not get to your question, we will follow up with you in about a week via email. So go ahead and please submit any questions that you have, but just know that we're going to try and focus answering of the questions on what would appeal to the broader audience of this webinar. So let's go ahead and meet tonight's panelists. I will turn things over to each of them for a quick introduction.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Greg DeCunha. I'm the Deputy Fire Chief for the San Carlos and Redwood City Fire Departments.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Elena Fulvio. I'm the Emergency Preparedness Outreach Coordinator and CERT Coordinator for the cities of San Carlos and Redwood City.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Myers. I'm a captain with the Sheriff's Office, and I serve as the Police Chief for the City of San Carlos.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jerry Cousins. I'm a sergeant with the Sheriff's Office, currently assigned as the Administrative Sergeant of the San Carlos Police Bureau.
Hey everyone, my name is Sandra Furpo. I am a coordinator with the San Mateo County Emergency Management.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kevin Williams. I'm the operations manager for the Calwater Bayshore District.
Thank you, everyone. Now I'll hand it over to Chief DeCunha, who's going to share a brief background on San Carlos's wildfire history.
Thanks, Quinn. In regards to San Carlos wildfire history, I'd like to share a wildfire incident that took place in San Carlos almost 55 years ago. It was 11 a.m. on a Sunday morning in September 1970. At this time, the papers and news were filled with reports about wildfires that had been destroying Southern California homes for a week. That didn't register with an 8-year-old boy who wandered into the dry brush behind the homes on Dover Court in San Carlos to sneak a smoke. He tossed away his cigarette. Minutes later, a corner of the 6-mile-long Devonshire Canyon was aflame. Next slide, please. Multiple firefighters rushed to the area after available crew from San Bruno to Palo Alto. Several aircraft also responded to assist with the firefighting efforts. The strategy was allow the fire to burn west towards open space and prevent the fire from moving east toward the houses. The fire burned to within 50 yards of the baseball diamond at the north end of Crestview and 100 yards of the homes on Melody. Just as it looked grim, the winds unexpectedly died down at 3:30 p.m. and the fire was contained shortly thereafter. There were 35 acres burned and no major injuries. Years ago, we identified certain summer months of the year as wildland season and would add additional personnel, protective equipment, and firefighting equipment to our apparatus. We no longer have a wildfire season in California. It is year-round. The related equipment is carried on our apparatus all year long. Understanding how wildfires begin and spread can help one better protect our community from nearby risk and damage. The following key factors make an area vulnerable to wildfire: vegetation and fuel sources, possible ignition sources, topography and weather, and development in the wildland-urban interface. I'll talk a little bit about each of those. With respect to vegetation and fuel sources, the type of fuels sourcing a fire can have an impact on how intense the fire can get and how quickly it can spread. While dry grass can catch fire and spread quickly, extremely intense fires tend to build more in dry, dense vegetation areas where treetop canopies can cast embers miles away. With respect to possible ignition sources, there are such as human-caused, electric transmission lines, vehicle fires, lightning, etc. Topography and weather. Topography refers to the surface features of land and includes mountains, hills, canyons, and creeks. After a fire begins, the topography of the land and the weather work together to determine how far and fast fires spread. Fires generally climb uphill, and more intense winds can spread a fire more quickly, carry embers further, and lead to unpredictable conditions. Development in the wildland-urban interface. Homes and communities are in areas that were open space in the past. For example, there was definitely more open space in 1970 in San Carlos than there is today, and that presents more challenges for us in providing public safety during a wildfire incident. This presentation, as Quinn mentioned, will cover how the participating agencies prepare for wildfire and how residents can prepare. Don't assume it cannot happen here. No community is exempt. Now I'd like to turn it back over to Quinn for the poll.
Thank you, Chief DeCunha. Before we start part one of the webinar, the city would like to gauge our audience members' feelings on wildfire preparedness. I've just shared a poll with all of you, and if you could take a minute to respond to the 3 questions. We ask, how prepared do you feel for a wildfire? How prepared do you feel the city and its partners are prepared for a wildfire? And do you know how to prepare for an evacuation? It looks like most people have answered the question, so we'll go ahead and share the result. Maybe we'll give them 2 more seconds and then we'll share. Thank you to everyone who participated. So it looks like for question 1, we have mixed sentiments on how we're feeling prepared, and I hope that as we go through this presentation, you'll be able to learn some more tools, and so you'll be more confident preparing for wildfires. In terms of how the city and its partners are prepared, it looks like most people think that we're moderately prepared and that maybe some more efforts are needed. That's great feedback to hear, and during the presentation we will be speaking on our preparedness, so I'm really excited for you all to hear that. And then in terms of preparing for an evacuation, it looks like we have mixed results, but there's still some more that we could learn. So we'll be talking about all those topics, and with that, let's move forward with part 1 of the webinar. Part 1 is how the city of San Carlos and its partners prepare for and respond to wildfires. And I will hand it back to Chief DeCunha with the San Carlos and Redwood City Fire Department.
I will discuss how the fire department prepares for and responds during a wildfire. First, I'll talk about preparation and training. We are constantly training and preparing for wildfire. Here are several examples, and not in any particular order. We do community education and enforcement during annual wildland interface inspections, which essentially we help homeowners create defensible space and clearance around their homes. We also investigate and respond to any community concerns that we receive. We assist with the vegetation management program in the city. The goal of that program is to create defensible space where city parks and parcels butt up to private property and homes. And the fire assists the city staff in prioritizing that work to make the most efficient use of the limited annual budget. We also, all of our probationary firefighters go through a training module specific to wildland firefighting. We also do annual hands-on wildland training at all levels, from the chief officers on down to the probationary firefighters. We do that within the department We also train with our neighboring agencies in what we call the South Zone of San Mateo County. We also do countywide training, and then we also do some training at the state and federal level. We also have specialized wildland training task books, and some folks are working on those, which are sanctioned by the California State Fire Marshal's Office. We also do tabletop exercises in the county. And then as far as actual incidents, almost all of those are followed by what we call an after action report, where we'll discuss what went well, what could have gone better. I think a great current example of that, some of you may be familiar with, is the Edgewood incident, which occurred in June of 22. It was actually a rapid response to 2 separate fires in Redwood City, the Edgewood fire being the largest one. It was about 20 acres. And it reached about 20 acres until it was finally extinguished. They basically were reported at the same time. They only came in a couple minutes from each other. It was mid-afternoon, high temps. I think it was about 103 degrees that day, and low humidity. It involved resources from Redwood City Fire Department, San Mateo County Fire, CAL FIRE, and also Woodside Fire Protection District. And similar to the Devonshire Canyon Fire incident in 1970, we were extremely lucky. There was relatively no wind that day in June of 22, and there were no other fires in basically in the Bay Area. So we had full use of all state resources and all aircraft to protect those homes and to extinguish that fire. The other things we assist with is the mutual aid responses throughout the state and get a lot of hands-on training in assisting with those fires. We also participate in prescribed burns. Due to restrictions, those don't happen very often, but whenever the opportunity exists, we will participate in those. And then as far as outreach for the community, we do emergency preparedness seminars like this one. We attend neighborhood association meetings, and then also do community evacuation drills at schools, businesses, and then in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. As far as response and sort of our suppression and mitigation efforts, just kind of walk through the program. San Mateo County Dispatch, which is located in downtown Redwood City, they will receive a 911 call. And a wildfire call will typically come in as a grass fire or smoke investigation. And essentially, every type of incident, whether it be a medical, a vehicle accident, has a call type and a response in San Mateo County. The caller would provide an address and or a location, and dispatch would send the appropriate local or state resources based on the following. First thing they'll need to determine with respect to a wildfire is whose responsibility or jurisdictional area would be involved. And we divide that into sort of 3 areas. We have a local response area, a state response area, and a mutual threat zone. And I'll spend a little bit of time talking about each of those. So the local responsibility area are areas of the state in which the financial responsibility of preventing and suppressing wildfires is the primary responsibility of a city, town, county, or district. And in San Mateo County, for local responsibility area, we have a San Mateo County deployment and alarm plan, which is pre-designated responses for all the call types that I recently spoke about. We also have an automatic aid plan in San Mateo County. There are no jurisdictional boundaries. I do think it's sort of a best practices compared to several other counties where the closest unit responds. And like I said, it's not by jurisdiction. And I think this has been time tested during numerous incidents since the 1990s when it first began. We've had multiple incidents, multiple 6, 7, 8 alarm fires. We had 2 4th alarm fires in South San Francisco just a few years ago, one being a wildland fire. At the same time, there was a commercial structure fire, and there were no other missed calls for service. The dispatch will also depend on whether it's a regular dispatch level or red flag dispatch day. And those will depend on the conditions. And red flag just means we will get additional resources that'll be front loaded on the incident. With respect to the state responsibility area, or SRA, those are areas of the state in which financial responsibility of preventing and suppressing fires is primarily the responsibility of the state. When we have fires in those areas, we get CAL FIRE to assist, and we get the full support, their battalion chiefs, their engines, their hand crews, their aircraft, whether that be planes and helicopters, their bulldozers, and even their water tenders. And then their local state dispatch center is in Felton. So I mentioned the local San Mateo County dispatch is in downtown Redwood City at the county center. For the state, it's the local ones in Felton. And the state resources also have a low, medium, and high dispatch levels, depending on the conditions. We also have a mutual threat zone, which we call an MTZ, and that's where local and state responsibility areas adjoin or abut each other. And in that case, you will get resources from both to respond. We handle wildfire incidents using the incident command system. So there'll be an incident command post, and all incident communications will go through that command post. The incident commander directs the coordinated attack of that wildfire, and that incident command system is scalable depending on the size. The one important thing I'd like to mention is unified command at that command post. So in that case, there'll be single point ordering of all resources, and there'll usually be a representative from fire. In San Carlos, it'd be the sheriff's office and then EMS, but could expand where there's a liaison or a cooperator or stakeholder from Public Works. Typically, San Mateo County Emergency Management would be there. I know Cal Water's participating today on this call, but it could be Cal Water or another water system provider, PG&E and CHP, just to name a few. The way a fire progresses, we will request additional resources via alarms. So, and that's all predetermined. A first alarm fire will get you X number of resources and engines, expanding to a second, and so on and so forth. The incident commander needs to keep aware of sort of what reflex times. So we have a system in San Mateo County where if an area is being depleted, we have automatic move up of resources from another area of the county into the area where the wildfire. So in this case, we would move folks from northern San Mateo County or even central San Mateo County to fill in the south zone here if we had a fire in San Carlos. And we will typically try and request those alarms in advance as we're using up resources so that we allow for the reflex time for them to arrive on scene. And basically we'll keep requesting alarms until the incident's been abated, and even afterwards, we may need additional help for mop up and overhaul. So hopefully that's helpful to kind of give you a glimpse of how we prepare and also handle the suppression efforts. And now I'd like to turn it over to Sergeant Jerry Cousins, who will discuss how the Sheriff's Office prepares for and responds during a wildfire.
Thank you, Chief. So I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the Sheriff's Office and our preparedness and response during wildfire incidents. So before a wildfire occurs, the Sheriff's Office works proactively to ensure readiness. I'm going to start with talking about training and planning. The Sheriff's Office conducts regular emergency preparedness and response training with our staff. So this training is conducted during patrol team briefings with our patrol teams, where we discuss potential incidents, evacuation planning, and strategies. We discuss our SMC Alert and Genesis system. Genesis is formerly known as Zone Haven, and we'll cover that more in depth later on in this presentation. And then we participate in collaborative tabletop exercises and evacuation drills. For example, we just had a recent Palomar Park evacuation drill. The Sheriff's Office also participates in interagency planning with the Department of Emergency Management. our Emergency Services Bureau, the fire department, and our own city staff. We just recently had a tabletop exercise with all of those stakeholders there that I listed. So for those who are wondering what ESB is, it is an important unit within the Sheriff's Office, and it stands for the Emergency Services Bureau, and it's comprised of sworn specialized units and volunteer forces, and they respond to emergency law enforcement activities, search and rescue missions, evidence searches, and requests for mutual aid in natural disasters. So the members of these units are highly trained and possess a variety of skills, and all units are available to respond to mutual aid requests throughout the county and the state of California. And the goal of the Emergency Services Bureau is to swiftly and safely respond to requests for assistance, support, and coordinate needed services in a manner that promotes safety and security for the community. So during an event like a wildfire, the Sheriff's Office would request and activate ESB, and we would have all these resources at our disposal to assist us. The Sheriff's Office also works collaboratively and continuously on evacuation plans, traffic control strategies, and resource deployment protocols within our office. Another important aspect of planning for an event like a wildfire is community outreach. So educating the public on fire safety, evacuation zones, and emergency alerts that we're going to be talking about more later on. Collaborating with the different units such as the Community Emergency Response Team, the CERT team, and promoting signups for our emergency alert system so that everyone stays informed. Pre-event coordination. So the Department of Emergency Management and Emergency Services Bureau, they work to update maps and evacuation routes, which again is going to be talked more in depth about Genesis and our mapping system that app holds. Identifying vulnerable populations, so elderly, disabled populations that may need more evacuation assistance and extra time. And the Sheriff's Office, with public safety communications, works to ensure readiness of communication systems and backup power for 911 dispatch. So shifting to the response phase for the Sheriff's Office. So when a wildfire starts, the Sheriff's Office will shift into emergency mode and we'll start thinking about evacuations. So we will cover evacuations again on another slide, but I'm going to touch on a few things with evacuations. So in the event of a wildfire, the Sheriff's Office will issue evacuation warnings or mandatory evacuation orders in coordination with Fire Command. If you're wondering what the difference is, an evacuation warning will be issued when there is a potential threat to life and property. So if it's an evacuation warning, you should consider evacuating those who need additional time. Get yourself and your family ready and prepared to evacuate. And don't wait to be issued an evacuation order if you feel like it's unsafe. You can act early, pack up, and go early. An evacuation order is a mandatory order that's being given. This is an immediate order to evacuate and to help preserve life. So that our goal with evacuation orders is to get everybody out as quickly as possible once you receive that order. Grab your bag and go, and don't wait for more announcements to come from law enforcement. That will be your announcement. The Sheriff's Office conducts door-to-door notifications as needed. We will also touch more on this later, but you may receive evacuation warnings or orders through the SMC alert system, the Genesis app, or door-to-door evacuations. And we also have our audible sirens and PA announcements. So it may be a mixture or all of those things that you'll be hearing evacuation orders through. And some other things that the Sheriff's Office will do in the event of a wildfire is traffic and access control. So the Sheriff's Office will assist with managing traffic flow on evacuation routes and establishing roadblocks or checkpoints to prevent unauthorized access to evacuation zones. And we will coordinate with Public Works and for detours and proper signage so that people know the correct routes to take. We will also provide patrol during evacuated areas, and this is something that is important to prevent looting or unauthorized entry to evacuation areas. And then we will assist with rescues or missing persons during fire evacuation zones and provide law enforcement support at evacuation centers or shelters. Also important to note is our interagency coordination. So the Sheriff's Office operates within a unified command, as Chief DeCunha mentioned. So we work with fire, EMS, and emergency management agencies. as well as communicate with Emergency Operations Center for real-time updates and resource requests for the emergency. So overall, the Sheriff's Office is prepared to assist you to preserve life and property in the event of a wildfire. And I will now pass it along to Sandra with San Mateo County Emergency Management. Thank you.
Sergeant. So in the case of a wildfire or any type of emergency, our role as emergency management is the support of our 20 cities throughout San Mateo County, as well as about 18 unincorporated agencies throughout the county of San Mateo. What you're seeing on your screen right here is the Standardized Emergency Management System, or SEMS, which is something that we all follow. And, you know, having so many agencies in such a large state, we have to try and really work on that communication, and that's what this is all about. As you can see, the first step is the boots on the ground. The folks that you're hearing from tonight, your fire agency, your law enforcement, your public works, your CERT volunteers, and you are the people on the ground. You're the first ones who see or experience or alert to something, whatever the incident may be, happening. It may step up to your city. Your city government may decide, depending on the size of the incident, if it's expanding, to open something called the EOC, or Emergency Operations Center, in your city. And they would automatically then notify us at the county level that that is being done and that the event is growing or expanding. So we are there to support whatever additional needs may come up. We may indeed open our own EOC in response, and then be prepared if the need arises to bring up more information, more resources, request those resources from the region and or the state level. So that's the main thing. Next slide, please. In terms of our role and types of things that we do, there are 4 phases in every disaster: preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. So right now, we are in the preparedness and mitigation phases. That's just an ongoing all the time. And what you are doing here tonight, and I'm thanking you very much for taking the time to be here tonight, is part of our preparedness as well as our mitigation. You heard a lot about training. Our folks in law enforcement and our folks in the fire service do a lot of training. And that has a role for you as well. If you take a CPR class, if you take the CERT training, if you take Stop the Bleed class, that's all part of training, and that enhances our community's resilience and strength. And if you do that, we thank you very much for it, because it does create a much stronger community. We at the county level include ourselves in that training as well. We train our county employees on all types of response to all types of disasters and the support of our cities within the county. In mitigation, you'll see a lot. If you've seen the goats running around, that's wildfire mitigation right there. The new hazard maps that have been released by CAL FIRE. Again, more information, more tools for your use, right? Then there's response. Response happens when the incident happens. That's when our fire, our law, our public works, all those folks are responding to whatever and wherever the incident may be. And that includes us at the county level, depending, again, on the size of the incident and the support needed by wherever the incident may be happening. Then there's recovery, and that's the phase that people don't put a lot of thought into, but it is always the longest part of any incident. If it is a large incident, let's say the Sonoma County fires back in 2017, they are still in recovery. They are still going through the rebuild, this determination of what's being built, where is it being built, financing, all that sort of thing. Debris management, big issue right after an incident. So all of that is part of the phase of any disaster, and that is our role in disaster management. So I want to pass it on now to Kevin Williams at CAL FIRE.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, Kevin Williams here with Cal Water. I'm the operations manager for the Bayshore District. Before I get started to talking about what we do to keep the community of San Carlos safe, I want to give a brief overview of Cal Water. It'll play into some of what I discuss later. So Cal Water has 26 districts throughout the state of California, and we serve over 2 million people. We have subsidiaries in Washington, Hawaii, and New Mexico. We're actually going to be celebrating our 100-year anniversary next year in 2026. So that makes us 1 year younger than the city of San Carlos. The Bayshore District, my district, serves San Mateo, South San Francisco, and of course, San Carlos. We have 45 field employees and 20 customer service representatives here to serve the community. The map on the left here is an overview of our San Carlos system. Some of the specifics are we have 114 miles of water main. We have 929 fire hydrants. We have 19 storage tanks, over 6.2 million gallons of storage, 24 booster pumps, 20 pressure zones, and interties with some of our neighboring systems. So for the size of the system, it's fairly complex. We can go to the next slide, please. So I'd like to talk a little bit about our SCADA system and some of its capabilities. So SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. We have staff that monitor this system 24/7, 365. So through the SCADA, we have the ability to remotely move water throughout the distribution system on demand. We need to cycle our tanks, the levels in our tanks on a daily basis. So if we happen to be on a downward trend and there is an abnormal draw in our system due to a fire, we can almost immediately remotely turn on a booster pump or open control valves that will increase flow to parts of the system experiencing the extra demand. You may be asking, why don't we just keep our tanks full all the time? And the answer is that would create some pretty negative water quality issues for us. Water can stratify in the tanks and become stagnant if not cycled on a regular basis. So we're doing a constant dance between emergency preparedness and water quality. We do have summer settings and winter settings. Summertime, we aim to keep our tanks more full during higher demand and higher wildfire risk. In the wintertime, we keep the tanks lower. If there is a red flag warning issued, we have a standard operating procedure to top off all of our tanks and put all of our operable facilities in service until the warning has been lifted. The image on the right here is an actual scenario that played out earlier this year in our South San Francisco system. I got a call from Ken Anderson, who's the emergency services manager for South City Fire. He said, "Hey, Kevin, we are not seeing the flow that we would really like to see out of this hydrant. You know, they're getting water, but not at the flow they'd like." I reached out to our operators. They were able to go into SCADA. They were able to move some water around and increase flow to the zone that they were in. And he called me back 2 minutes later and said, "I don't know what you did, but this hydrant's ripping and we're able to fight this fire adequately and keep our firefighters safe." So just one scenario there. We can go to the next slide. Talk a little bit about our wildfire hardening infrastructure projects. These are projects that are specifically designed to provide resiliency in our systems to protect against wildfires. So we've completed several in San Carlos over the last few years. I have a couple of examples of them. So one here is we installed 2,700 feet of 12-inch ductile iron main. The basis of design for that project was to supply additional fire protection for the stations on Crestview Drive through a secondary large diameter main. These stations are all in the same area, so a single wildfire would create a lot of stress on them simultaneously. Additional flow through that pipeline will allow the tanks to fill while hydrants are being drawn from. If we can go to the next slide. This is a project that was just completed a couple months ago. So this is a stationary generator at one of our sites in San Carlos. These have automatic transfer switches. So if there is a power PSPS event or a power shutoff for whatever reason, these will automatically turn on, keep our pumps pumping and water flowing through our system. Next slide. So this is something near and dear to my heart. I am actually a supervisor for the Cal Water Operations Rapid Response Team. This was something that we formed after the campfire in Paradise in 2018. During that event, we deployed dozens of employees from throughout the state. They were there for a week at a time to provide mutual aid to the Paradise Irrigation District. We quickly realized that we were not fully prepared for some of what we encountered up there and needed to better develop some of the folks to handle situations like that. The team is now up to 70 members. We all have go bags at the ready and can be deployed in as quickly as an hour to respond to natural disasters and wildfires throughout the state. On the right-hand side, you can see the service areas that Cal Water has in the state. We've divided the team up into regions. We have a southern, central, Bay Area region, and a northern region. That way, if there's one region that's impacted, a lot of times the operators in that system are dealing with, family and their homes, and we can then provide mutual aid to our own districts or even neighboring systems, as we did for Paradise Irrigation District. Later this year, the team's going to be down in East LA, and we're going to be receiving the CERT training from the LA County Fire Department, which you've heard a little bit about, and I think you're going to hear more later tonight. Next slide. Some of the equipment that we have at our disposal. This here is our emergency response trailer unit. So this unit can sustain 6 workers with tools, equipment, tents, cooking equipment for 7 days. And they contain materials for common repairs that we need to make. And there's a picture, you might recognize the guy on the left there. That was a younger me when I got deployed to the Paradise Irrigation, or the Paradise fires, the campfires up there. Next slide. So I'll talk about our fire hydrant maintenance and inspection program. As I mentioned, we have over 900 hydrants in San Carlos. So staying on top of that can be a bit of a challenge. We do have a dedicated foreman of hydrant maintenance whose sole job and function is to ensure that all of our hydrants are in proper working conditions. We perform visual inspections on all hydrants every year and do hydrant maintenance on 1/5 of them. So every 5 years, all of our hydrants have received the required maintenance. It's really important to stay on top of that. Each hydrant costs around $4,000. So we want to protect our infrastructure and our investment and make sure that they're working. I do have a request from the community that if you happen to drive by a hydrant and it looks like, it's out of proper working condition or it just looks off for whatever reason, please call us and we will respond to it immediately. You can see on the right-hand side, all those dots are hydrants that are in our San Carlos system there. Next slide. So a little thing that we do, all of our employees carry fire extinguishers in their vehicles, and we also have these fire packs. We're not firefighters by any stretch of the imagination, but if we do see a small brush fire or if we're performing hot work and there's some sparks that come from that, we can douse those and take care of it before it becomes a larger problem. Next slide. So one thing we've learned responding to statewide emergencies at Cal Water is communication and coordination are paramount. Sometimes you will not have use of cell phones. So we've invested heavily in these portable handheld radios, as also truck mounted radios where we can communicate internally statewide. Next slide. Yeah, I really want to talk about our partnership and relationships with local fire departments. So when it comes to fires, every second counts. At Cal Water, we're proud to support our firefighters 24/7, 365. Our investment in infrastructure and our commitment to maintaining our pipes, fire hydrants, and storage tanks helps to provide the reliable water access they need when they need it. Together, we work to keep our community safe. Some of what we do to foster that relationship, we ensure that our emergency response plans are updated annually. We have the correct contacts and they know who we are. We've worked with Redwood City Fire to help support their ISO Class 1 rating. They should be very proud of that. They are in the top 1% of firefighting departments that can provide safety to the community. We have a firefighter grant program, and since 2019, we have provided grants of over $1 million. Redwood City has benefited from that. There's some hoses and equipment that they got. I believe that was in 2022. And then we also host cross-training opportunities. We have community EOC events and exercises where we do tabletop exercises and go through some mock scenarios. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Quinn.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I'm going to talk about how the city of San Carlos prepares for and responds during wildfires. Before a wildfire even occurs, we focus on communication. The city regularly updates its wildfire preparedness and emergency preparedness web pages, which are linked here on this slide. These pages contain wildfire safety tips, alert sign-up instructions, and other resources, so be sure to check them out. We also post important information on our social media channels, and you can find us on X, Instagram, Facebook, and Nextdoor at City of San Carlos. Prevention is another key piece. As Chief DeCunha previously mentioned, the city collaborates with the San Carlos and Redwood City Fire Department, and we dedicate roughly $200,000 per year of our annual budget to vegetation management in open space parks and city-owned parks and parcels. This work includes goat grazing, hand crews, and heavy equipment. The work is typically completed in May and June of each year. In fact, the goats just finished up their work for the year, and you may have noticed them grazing in Big Canyon and Eden Parks just a few weeks ago. Our city staff prioritize preparedness as well. Internally, we maintain an emergency operations plan, which guides our staff on how to respond to various emergencies. And have you ever wondered how we'd communicate with you during an emergency if we lost all of our power and cell service? Well, we have a zero power communications plan for that reason. And I'm going to show you right here. In an emergency situation where we do not have internet or reliable cell phone service and we cannot communicate with our residents, we would deploy flyers, A-frame signs, electronic signboards, or other tools around the city to these locations that we're showing here. So think City Hall, the library, our fire stations are locations that we could use, Crestview Park for those who live up in the hills, and Loyola Park for those who are over on the east side. So in an emergency situation, if we cannot communicate with you through our normal means, we have a backup plan. And I urge you to remember these different locations so that if you're looking for information, you can go find it. We also conduct emergency preparedness trainings on an ongoing basis with our staff. Last year, for example, we held general emergency operations trainings, as well as an earthquake exercise to keep our team sharp. And how does the city respond during a wildfire emergency? Well, we will provide real-time communications. Our city's main emergency communications tools are the website and social media. During a wildfire, we will post regular updates on social media and to our website homepage at cityofsancarlos.org. So please remember to check those two locations during a wildfire or other emergency, our website homepage and our social media channels. Furthermore, did you know that California state law designates all city, county, and state employees as disaster service workers? During a wildfire event, the city may activate its Emergency Operations Center, also known as the EOC, and our city employees would be called in to serve in the EOC. The EOC helps us manage communication, coordinate resources, lead an organized response, and like Sandra was showing in her slides, collaborate with other agencies such as the county, Cal Water, or even Cal Fire. The city's primary EOC locations are at City Hall and at the Corporation Yard. Lastly, during a wildfire and if needed, the city also operates 2 evacuation sites. We have one at the Adult Community Center and one at the Youth Center. These facilities are meant to serve as short-term evacuation sites, and they would only be opened on a case-by-case basis as an emergency evolves. We could open up additional evacuation sites throughout the city in places like gyms or churches. However, the ACC and the Youth Center are the 2 evacuation sites owned and operated by the city. Now, that concludes part 1 of the webinar, and we will now move into part 2, which is talking about how you all at home should be preparing for and responding during wildfires. I will now pass it on to Elena from the San Carlos and Redwood City Fire Department.
Hi again, my name is Elena Fulvio. I'm your Emergency Preparedness Outreach Coordinator, which means I work directly with the public, sharing information, training you, educating you, and really preparing you. So you've just heard from your own cities, agencies, organizations, departments, how they're preparing, and really how they prepare, how they practice, and they repeat. So really these 5 areas are where you can look inward into your own life and how you can prepare and mitigate the effects on you when a disaster or wildfire happens while they're doing their jobs and while they're protecting you as well. So the first thing that many of them mentioned actually is having a go bag. That's the #1 aspect in terms of you never know how long you're going to have. It could be a couple of minutes, it could be 15 minutes, but I always say prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So a go bag really isn't a huge bag with everything that you love in it. It is meant to sustain you for between 3 to 7 days. And that doesn't sound like a lot of time, but when your life is at stake, when your loved ones' lives are at stake, what's important is that you have the essentials that you need to sustain you for those days. So some things that you can consider in this bag, and I actually have a few go bags. I have one in my car, I have one at work, I have one here as well. I have one for my dog. If you have children, I would suggest making one for them as well. But some essential aspects to sustain your life. You want some water in there. You're gonna want clothes. Now, some people think, you know, it's hot summer. I'm gonna pack very light tank tops, not much clothing. If you have to evacuate and go into a shelter and there's high AC, they might have blankets, they may not. So I wouldn't say overpack clothing, but definitely plan some pants, some closed-toed shoes, and even closed-toed shoes because you might be walking. It's safety aspect too. So think about the different situations you might be in with that. Essentials, medical. If you have any medical aspects, any medications that you're taking, any medications that your family is taking, get a separate bag from the ones that you're currently using. Create a second bag and put that in your go bag. Talk to your doctor about the fact that you want to be prepared. Have that conversation with them. The other aspect of kind of a safety aspect too is documents. So in a pinch, you may not be able to grab your purse or your wallet, but if you put documents into your go bag, like copies of your driver's license, your social security card, your passport, then when you get out there, when you might need to be identifiable, you have all of that. So it's a lot easier to navigate through a fast acting disaster when you have those aspects. Other aspects to sustain you, people say flashlights. I say yes. I say get a headlamp, because if you get a headlamp, you're able to have your hands free. So if you need to help someone else or hold on your go bag, you can have your hands free with that. Extra batteries with that, also mini first aid kit, obviously, and then some non-perishable food. So there's a lot more to go into a go bag, but those are the basic essentials that could sustain you for 3 to 7 days if you had to. Not luxurious, but it's what would sustain your life, and that's what you need to think about. The second aspect, and they will go into the evacuation planning of our city, but you can think about how you can evacuate yourself and your family and your loved ones from inside of your home. If you are inside of your home and you get the alert, which way are you going? I've met many people that say, well, I think I'm going to go out that door. And when I ask them, what's out that door? Oh, there's a bunch of garbage cans. Okay, that might actually hinder you from getting out. So I always tell people it's better to be prepared than for in the moment to be scared, because it's going to ramp up your potential anxiety. So when you think of your home, just take a square and map out, where could we get out? What cars or car would we take? If we have animals, who's going to get the animals? Who's going to get the go bags? So be thinking about which way's out, what's blocked, what's not blocked, cars you would take, who would get the other items within your home as well. And that's very basic. When I get to CERT, we do teach that in CERT as well, but really being able to plan that will help our city to actually help you evacuate quicker as well. Because the more time you spend in your home with wildfire coming at you could be a higher risk of you not making it or your loved ones not making it. And we certainly don't want that. One of the other aspects that we talk about too is called defensible space. So it's a mitigation aspect. So if you think of your home, wherever you live, there are a few different zones, 5 feet, 30 feet, 100 feet away from your home. And as Chief DeCunha talked about in terms of embers flying, you might think, oh, you know, the fire's way up the hill. If one ember flies and hits the top of a tree and that tree is hanging over your home, it could ignite your fire. It can ignite your home very quickly. So defensible space is really the buffer zone you create between the nature, the different combustible materials around your home to help it not essentially be like a match and to light up. So there's zone 0, which is non-combustible, no wood chips. Those love fire. Zone 1 is lean, clean, and green, as we call it. And then zone 2 is 100 feet out. What can you trim down so it's a fuel reduction? So there's more about that online as well, but really looking around you, what can you trim back? What can you take away that's going to help your house survive? Then, as I mentioned, I also am the CERT coordinator. So it's a community emergency response team. So we don't just respond to disasters. What this program actually does is I take the public and I help you get prepared in various different ways for minor emergencies, for large emergencies. So you can respond in a much quicker and less anxious way. So for instance, there's basic medical needs. There's a little bit of search and rescue just in case you need to find your way out. Different aspects. And actually we just picked our dates for our fall academy, which is a 7-week academy, 1 night a week. You learn many different aspects, how to be able to be prepared and respond in the event of a disaster. And we have about 160 members in our community right now, and about 45 to 50 in San Carlos. So you have people in your neighborhood who care about you and themselves to help you be more prepared. And then moving along, connect with your neighbors. The greatest thing you can do is like what we're doing here. If you don't share what you know with others, you can't help them to be more prepared. And then as a community, we can't act as quickly. If these departments weren't as connected as they are, as you can hear, we would be failing. And so therefore, that's why we all work together to create our plans together, to work together. So share with your neighbors, share with your loved ones, and really just make sure that you think about the fact that just because you plan your evacuation plan once, that's not really preparing. So plan, prepare, practice, and repeat. So that's what you can do to help yourself, to also help your city agencies, organizations, to really help you and help us in a moment of a disaster wildfire. So that's just tip of the iceberg in terms of that, but I hope you got something out of that. Next, I want to have Captain Mark Myers from the Sheriff's Office, and he is also the Chief of San Carlos PD, talk about evacuations.
Thank you. So I'm going to cover when the order to evacuate is given. I think I have to go back a slide, or is it? There we go. So during an evacuation, the Sheriff's Office will respond and begin the evacuation process as soon as it is necessary to ensure the safety of our community members. One of the key things is to know your evacuation zone through Genesis or Zone Haven. It gives you the ability to track real-time evacuation zone, have access to maps and the routes that you'll be asked to go down. I believe there are 18 zones here in San Carlos. And then, like Elena was talking about, have your go bag ready. Make sure you follow law enforcement's instructions. You know, anytime there's an evacuation, it could be chaotic, but we urge the community to obey all evacuation orders immediately. The Sheriff's Office has implemented the high-low audible warning on all of our patrol vehicles, and that's another way that we can notify the community that it's time to evacuate. Well, basically what that means is we'll be driving around the neighborhood with our sirens on. It's a different siren than you would hear like during a traffic stop or when we're rolling code 3. Quinn, can you play that right now? All right, perfect. Yeah, so whenever you hear those, it's the high lows, it's time to go. We also remind you to use the designated evacuation route. Do not use shortcuts that could be closed or dangerous. Evacuation center locations will change depending on the logistics of the situation and will be communicated to the community through previously mentioned channels such as Genesis or SMC alerts or through the other city means. Make sure you drive safely, stay calm and alert, and follow all the designated signs and directions by authorities. Make sure you communicate with your family members and your relatives, stay calm and alert. Text, don't call, because what we have found too is a lot of times the networks will get overloaded because you'll have radio transmissions from law enforcement. We'll be talking on the phones too. So a lot of times it's easier just to send a text message to your loved one and say, hey, this is where we're going to meet at. Also tune into your emergency broadcast for updates as well. And then after the evacuation, make sure you return when it's only safe. We'll be law enforcement and fire and DEM will give that order because a lot of times there's a lot of things that have to be done before we can repopulate an area. PG&E has to come out. There's a whole myriad of checklists that must be completed. Be cautious, watch for down power lines, gas leaks, or unstable structures. And if something doesn't look safe, just back away and notify the authorities. So that kind of sums up what we'll be doing during an evacuation. And now I'm going to pass it to Sandra from DEM.
Thank you, Captain. So one of the other things, the idea in any emergency is, of course, giving you as many tools as possible and adding to your flexibility. So that's, I want you to start thinking of it that way. And one of the tools that is available that has been mentioned on a couple of occasions is SMC Alert. And we, as the County Emergency Management Department, manage the alert and warning system for the County of San Mateo that all the cities use. We are not the only agency that sends out these alerts. These alerts can come from your city, they can come from your law enforcement, your fire department, your public works department, for example. So we authorize, train all the people within these departments to use SMC Alert as a tool for you to have at your disposal. So SMC Alert is our alert and warning system for the County of San Mateo. Every county has their own alert and warning system. So if you work or spend time in another county, you might want to also register for theirs. This is an opt-in system, so you will only receive it if you register to receive, in our case, SMC Alert. The website there, smcalert.info, will get you to the registration page. You can put in, for example, the preferred language that you'd like to receive them in. But if that language isn't available in the message that's sent out, you will receive it in English, and you will receive it regardless. So the other tool, in addition to SMC Alert, and it works very well in conjunction with SMC Alert, is, as the captain mentioned, Genesis. Genesis used to be known as Zone Haven. All the areas of San Mateo County have been divided up into zones. So it's important for you to know your zone. And at the Genesis Protect website, you can put in your address, put in your work address, put in your children's school address, community center, wherever you spend time, and learn what zones they are in. Because it's a much easier way to communicate. And in an emergency, there's not a lot of time, and we don't have, time for questions. We want to be as clear as we can. And if we can put in, instead of saying, and we'll still, of course, do this, but everybody north of El Camino and southwest of, Delaware or Ralston, whatever, I don't know my north from my south on a good day, let alone if I'm nervous or tense. So if I know my zone, and they tell me that SCE003 needs to be evacuated, I know whether or not, because that's just as important, whether or not my address is impacted by this evacuation order. All right, so Genesis Protect can be checked up live in real time on their website, which we have, I think, listed there, as well as the app. The app is nice. Most counties, not all, throughout the state of California are adopting Genesis Protect. So for example, if you're on vacation, you're on a road trip, and you're driving into an area in which an evacuation order has been given, the app will alert you that you're doing so, and you may want to turn around. But in terms of evacuation, these are tools that are extremely helpful. And Another tip for any evacuation planning is I always say 2 ways out. 2 ways out of the room you're in. So take a look right now, the room you're in, 2 ways out. 2 ways out of your home, and 2 ways out of your neighborhood, because you never know when a tree might fall and your primary evacuation route is blocked. Something may change. You want to be able to have that flexibility of having those options. I'm going to send you back to Quinn for a little bit more information.
Thank you, Sandra. As I mentioned earlier, our website and social media channels are the main ways in which the city communicates with folks prior to and during emergencies. In terms of preparation and finding resources beforehand, you can visit cityofsancarlos.org/wildfire for wildfire tips and cityofsancarlos.org/emergency if you want to sign up for SMC Alert, Genesis Protect, or learn how to make a go bag or an at-home emergency kit. So that's the URL you're going to want to follow, cityofsancarlos.org/emergency. I have all the links there to sign up for SMC Alert and Genesis Protect as well, and to download the app if that's what you want to do. If you'd like to follow the county's social media, they also post during emergencies, so you can visit their website, smcgov.org, and find the links to their social media there. And as a final reminder, I just want to state very strongly that during a wildfire or other emergency, you will want to go to the city's social media or our website homepage or the county's social media for the latest information. And that concludes part 2 of the webinar. Now that we've gone over all this information, we'd like to invite you to answer the same poll questions that we asked you at the beginning of the presentation to see how we did. So I'll give everybody a little bit of time to fill out their answers. And I have one more announcement after this, and then we will move into the Q&A portion. And I see we've got lots of questions rolling in, so if you have any more, please continue to submit them. It looks like we may have improved. Some people are even feeling very prepared and moderately prepared for themselves for a wildfire. In terms of how the city and our partners are prepared, I love to see the positivity. Thank you so much. I'm really glad that we were able to show you tonight how ready we are. And I see that some of you are still thinking that we're moderately prepared or needs improvement, and I welcome the questions during the next portion. So please continue to submit questions. And same for those of you who feel somewhat prepared for an evacuation, but not all the way prepared. Go ahead and submit questions if that will help you feel better prepared. Let's stop sharing and move on to my final announcement, which is, now that we've taught you how important it is to have an emergency kit at home and go bags in your car and all other places, the City of San Carlos, while supplies last, is giving away free emergency kits. If you scan the QR code on this PowerPoint or you visit the link, cityofsancarlos.org/emergency, you can see what we ask for you before delivering you your free kit. In short, we're asking you to show that you put 5 things away into an emergency kit, and we also ask you to show us 2 evacuation routes to leave your neighborhood in an emergency situation. And then if you email us those things to our communications@cityofsancarlos.org email account, we will go ahead and get you your free kit, which includes like a radio, a flashlight, and a lot of other great supplies. So it's a really cool program, and we would love for you to please apply to get a kit. So thank you all for bearing with us during our presentation. Now we are at the Q&A portion. We will switch over to look at the questions that you've asked. And I've also left a couple resources up on the screen. I'll leave them up for a few more minutes, but then we'll stop sharing. But let's move over to the questions. Do any of the panelists see questions right now that they'd like to answer right off the bat?
I just answered Quinn. Gentleman had a question about the type of radios we have. So they are a VHF analog conventional. I thought it would leave the answer up there. So if anybody else had the same question, they would see it. So I just wanted to, if anybody else had that question, they are not encrypted. That was the second part of his question.
Thanks. Anybody else have questions that they want to answer live, or I can start going down the list?
There's a question regarding fire extinguisher training. There is going to be fire extinguisher training at the upcoming Disaster Preparedness Day. Disaster Preparedness Day is taking place on August 2nd at the San Mateo County Event Center in San Mateo. That's the fairgrounds. And this is a day full of all kinds of information in terms of disaster preparedness. You'll be able to meet with your certs. You'll be able to talk to firefighters, bomb squad, large animal rescue, the Peninsula Humane Society. It's great for the kids. But one of the workshops we have is fire extinguisher training. So that's on August 2nd. It's absolutely free parking, free admission. We'll even have free hot dogs. Again, at the event center. Bring the family, bring the neighbors, bring the grandparents, and hopefully that'll help. But as far as any planned fire extinguisher training within San Carlos, I'd have to give that to Chief DeCunha or Elena.
Yeah, I would let Elena, I think she talked about all the areas you could be prepared. And if somebody wanted to sign up for a CERT class, you will not only learn how to use a fire extinguisher, you'll learn many more skills.
I think Elena had to leave the call early, but if there's any more questions on that subject, we can get an answer to later. Does anyone want to answer the question? I think part 2 of this question, what to do with old fire extinguishers?
I think
I
you
can
can
take that.
Oh, go ahead, Sandra, please.
So in the county of San Mateo, and I can only speak to the county of San Mateo, fire extinguishers can be tossed in the regular garbage if they have been decompressed. Meaning, take a garbage bag, take your old fire extinguisher, point the nozzle into the garbage bag, empty it out. So it's a good practice. You'll get to feel what it's like to fire off your fire extinguisher. Make sure it's fully empty. And at that point, close the garbage bag, seal it up. You can toss that in the regular garbage, and the canister can also be tossed in the regular garbage. So that is the current standard for those of us in San Mateo County. If it's been too long, if you don't remember the last time you purchased your fire extinguisher, it's time for a new one. And they're readily available online, Costco, all kinds of places, and they're not that bad as far as expense. And please don't put it under your sink or somewhere as a doorstop. You want to mount it close to a door, preferably at the right height so that it's easy to grab and use if necessary.
Thanks, Sandra. Any other questions that the panelists want to specifically mention first?
I answered one. There was a question about some vegetation management, it looks like, from property owned by SF Water. I put my email address in there. I can reach out to my contact that I have there. And if anybody sees, properties that look like there needs to be some additional vegetation management that's owned by either SF Water or Cal Water, let us know. We do it twice a year, but with some of the late rains that happen, some of the vegetation pops back up again. So it's kind of a constant battle. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me directly through that email address and we'll get it taken care of.
Thanks, Kevin. We got a question in from John Hoffman about eucalyptus trees. If fire, I don't know, Chief DeCunha, if you have an answer. Otherwise, I'm guessing it's a public works question and we could probably answer it later.
I think it is, but we do get questions, so I could kind of take a stab at it. I think eucalyptus trees are believed to be inherently dangerous with respect to fire, but I don't think that's the case. What we're looking for when we go out and look at trees is to see if they look healthy, if they're limbed up, if they're not shedding or sick. And if we have any question, obviously we would have the people get an arborist or somebody, a professional. This is specifically asking about city trees, but I think our public works staff does evaluate the eucalyptus trees. And if there's any question, they would have somebody come in and evaluate it.
Thanks, Chief DeCunha. I'll move on to the next question. What happens in a fire like this year's Altadena Pacific Palisades, excuse me, what if a fire like the Altadena Pacific Palisades fire happens here? How can we prepare?
I'm hoping that several of the panelists and the things that we mentioned, if people prepare and do all of those things, I want to be clear, those were some pretty disastrous conditions with 80 and 90-mile-an-hour winds. But I think, as was mentioned in evacuations, if people do all of their preparedness efforts and evacuate in a timely fashion, I think I could speak from the fire department. If we are spending time and or roads are clogged because people did not evacuate in a timely fashion, and then therefore our efforts are hindered in getting to an area to extinguish, or in fact, we're spending time evacuating folks and not, because obviously life safety is our chief priority. If we're spending time evacuating or assisting with evacuations of people rather than extinguishing the fire, then the fire just grows in size. So I think hopefully that answers the person's question. I think there were a lot of resources and things that were mentioned. And if anybody else would like to chime in.
I'll chime in a little bit. I know there was a lot of talk about, fire hydrants going dry, not having proper water supply. One thing to note is I don't know of a single distribution system in the country or maybe even the world that's designed to fight wildfires of that scale. These are domestic distribution systems, but making sure that we have our infrastructure updated, it's efficient, it's functioning, that when we do have scheduled maintenance or infrastructure upgrades, that we're doing this on a timely basis and we're not having multiple facilities offline. We schedule work around, peak wildfire season. I know Chief had mentioned earlier, and it's true, California doesn't really have a wildfire season. It's all year round. But from a homeowner's perspective, creating that defensible space, and I can assure you from the water distribution system, we're making all the investments. We're making sure that our infrastructure is working properly, and it's going to be there when we need it.
Chief DeCunha mentioned something about the fire department providing homeowners with assistance in creating defensible space. Please provide more detail regarding the type of assistance available, who is eligible to receive it, and how to request it.
With respect to wildland urban interface inspections, and we just adopted a new ordinance based on the new maps that were released for the local response area in both City of San Carlos and City of Redwood City, frankly, throughout the state. We, several years ago, in the early 2000s, determined our WUI zone as basically everything west of Alameda de los Pulgas. And so those are assigned as WUI inspections to the engine companies, and they, every address that fits into that, what we determined to be the WUI interface, gets an inspection. If people are concerned, they can certainly report an area and we'll go out and look at that. But and we'd be happy to come out if someone had a specific concern. Obviously, what happens sometimes is people report their neighbor. Obviously, I would like to encourage people to have conversations with their neighbors first, but we will absolutely go out and have our Fire Prevention Bureau investigate any concerned wildland urban interface or overgrowth.
Thank you. Kathleen, we are typing up a question to you, an answer to your question right now about upcoming CERT trainings. We're going to send you the link to the sign up website. Meg Holland asks, does the fire station do defensible space inspections of neighborhoods and homes?
I think I kind of just answered that, but it's specific. If that question is not answered, certainly they could resend it. But at this point, it is the area in our wildland urban interface.
Thank you. And Meg asked, how do we sign up for CERT training and Stop the Bleed training? Sandra, can you speak to Stop the Bleed training?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that's also one of the workshops that we will have for free at the Disaster Prep Day on August 2nd at the fairgrounds, the event center in San Mateo. Again, we'll have, I think, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. The event is from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we'll have more information on our website, which I'll get to you, Quinn. And but look for the Disaster Prep Day at the event center on August 2nd. So that's one opportunity for Stop the Bleed. There are other opportunities come. I know Elena with the CERT program is very involved, and I believe one of the projects is bringing a Stop the Bleed training to San Carlos. So we'll be able to put that on the city website as soon as it's locked in.
Thank you. We have a question from Natalie Carbone. Are fire blankets actually helpful in putting out small fires?
I think they can be just like a lid on a pot on a stove or something like that to smother it. I think the challenge is you have the fire blanket, and similar to what Sandra was talking about with fire extinguishers, is where is that fire blanket going to be when you need it? And does it get pushed to the back of the cabinet in the kitchen? Where is it in relation to the fire? So I think there's just but obviously that can smother a fire.
Great. I'm not seeing any more questions, so maybe we'll give people a few more chances to submit questions, or a few follow-up questions, but otherwise, we have no more questions waiting in the queue.
There was one question that I answered privately, but if there's any, it was regarding inspection of fire hydrant and maybe the schedule of when that's going to be inspected. But I encourage everybody to reach out to us, either infobay@calwater, or my email address was in there. If you see something that needs to be looked at or needs some attention, reach out and we'll get somebody looking at it right away.
Okay, it looks like we're not receiving any more questions, so we'll go ahead and conclude the webinar. I'd like to thank all of our panelists so much for attending and teaching our residents about how they can prepare for webinars and for showing our residents how you all are working so hard to keep them safe in the city. So thank you so much for your time tonight, and thank you for everybody at home who joined us and bringing your questions and your curiosity. Please share this information with your neighbors, and please share the information about my emergency kit giveaway with your friends, because we have a lot of kits that we want to put in your homes. So thank you so much, everybody, and good night.